In a poor country, amidst the presence of a magnificent fort, today these walls are the final refuge for the 3 lakh people who have been victims of tragic deaths. Here, you will only see skulls, signs of struggle, or instruments used to inflict pain on someone. These are the walls where Amin, amidst his 4th pregnant wife, laid her on the table, cut her hands and feet, laid them straight, and put her feet in place of her hands. He was the same person who would talk to the dead bodies for hours, spend time with them, and eventually fall asleep with them. Despite Amin's cruelty and ruthlessness, the people of Uganda had made him their president for quite some time. People there not only loved him the most, but also trusted him the most. But why did so many people, despite the atrocities and such actions, love this president so much? Well, the story of this president begins between 1924 and 1925, when Idi Amin was born in a small tribe in northwest Uganda. His life was full of British violence and slavery, just like the rest of Uganda and other countries. It is said that the people of Kakva were somewhat dangerous, very close to nature, and often gave blood, whether of humans or animals. Seeing all this, India was growing big. It was quite common for someone to kill a person and drink their blood. In his childhood, his parents separated, and his mother took him to the bamboo city of Uganda. But he was so poor that he could not afford a complete education. He had to leave high school in the 4th grade and take up various odd jobs to support his family. Finally, at the age of about 20 to 21, he joined the British military as an assistant cook. Standing at 6 feet 4 inches and speaking the local language of Uganda, an uneducated young adult took advantage of the colonizers. How could the British not exploit a soldier who would follow every order obediently and never question it? They gave him military training in boxing, swimming, and rugby, and then Amin helped the British maintain their dominance over Africans. He became so loyal to the British that he started killing his own people for them. From 1952 to 1966, he fought against the British in the Mau Mau revolt in Kenya and Somalia. He was so cruel that in any revolt, he would either bury the soldiers alive or kill them in such a brutal way that the people in front would be terrified. Seeing such cruelty towards his own people, the British began to admire him, and he became famous. His military rank increased, and in 1962, he became the 2nd highest-ranking officer in the British Army. During his journey to establish his position in the British Army, he met a friend, Milton Obote. He was also in a high-ranking position in the British Army, and their friendship grew so deep that people started smuggling gold ivory arms and ammunition and coffee for the British. In fact, this was the time when he began to misuse his power, and the people of Uganda who raised their voices against him were silenced. But the British officer turned a blind eye to human things, and when he did see, unfortunately, it was too late because Uganda had already become independent. If the British officers had punished him, it would not have made much difference because the British were out of power, and if their own people had punished him, well, there was no other leader to take control of Uganda at that time, and that's why on October 9th, 1962, Uganda became independent, and Amin became Uganda's president, and Idi Amin became the commander-in-chief of all armed forces under the head of Commonwealth government. According to the aid regulations, he was within overtake, but first, he was friends with both, who worked at the same level, which is evident. The position, power, and money caused a rift between them, which began to grow. And this rift had increased so much that aid had started mobilizing the entire army against overtake, who were ready to die with him against them, but as soon as he learned of this, he demoted them both, making them the commander-in-chief of all the armed forces and the commander of the army, and after this, the influence of the ID on other common forces was broken. Then, it seemed as if aid was angry with your bubble. Now he wanted only 2 things, the position of the president, but he did not do this directly. To win his position, he always went among the people, danced with them, understood their problems, and solved them. This made him quite popular among the people, and people began to trust him, and he continued to do so for quite some time, patiently. And then came the time he had always been waiting for, the time when death was acceptable to him. January 25th, 1971, he went to Singapore for a meeting of the heads of Commonwealth government, and taking advantage of this occasion, Amin declared himself the president of Uganda. Now his army's dominance over Uganda was already there, plus his image was quite clear to the people. It was only for the people that the soldier, the concern for its country and its people, and this sentiment helped Amin become the president of Uganda, and thus began the history of Uganda. This chapter of the History Guide of Uganda started with the direct removal of Obote. And then the news spread in Uganda that if someone is seen with a boat or whoever is giving him the news, and this news reaches the new government, then he will be killed immediately, and after that, Amin formed a complete killer squad, about which only Amin knew. The only difference was that if they ever felt that someone wanted to kill them or supported the overtake, they would kill them. In this, mind you, they had so much power that based only on suspicion, these people would kill the whole tribe. There were such sad incidents, actually, with the Lengo tribes, who were proven to have been murdered just because they had doubt that they were supporters of the overtake. And amidst all this, in 1972, Idi Amin had a dream. In the dream, Allah ordered him to expel all Asians from Uganda. Now, whether it was really a dream or he was just trying to create a story in front of people, only he knows. But the next morning, he did something no one had ever thought of. He announced throughout the country, "The Idi Amin dream sent last night from God, he instructed me to throw out all Asians from the country Uganda. Before you only, and at that time, there were the most Indian traders and businessmen in Asia, and they were running 60% of the Ugandan economy. That's why they also felt that the kind of woe had occurred that these people would not start ruling over them or all Ugandans should have opportunities, and that's why slowly the army there started confiscating Asian properties. Those Asians who did not leave Uganda were put in Idi Amin's concentration camps, and some who were not ready to leave were either killed or thrown alive among crocodiles. It is said that he threw them between a herd of 4,000 live disabled people, and slowly all these murders started taking the form of a genocide. And then, whether Asian or Ugandan tribes, everyone started torturing. People are being tortured well or not. To see this, they built 5 chambers in the compound of their own palace. There was no window in these chambers, nor any place for air to come in, and the doors of the chambers were always electrified, meaning if anyone touched them, he would be shocked to death. His army blindfolded people and brought them into these chambers, and then closed these chambers, people inside banging the knee walls to break them, but Ed didn't open the doors until the voices from inside stopped, and then he would feed all the bodies present inside to crocodiles. Many times, he left water inside those chambers and then electrified them, and all the people inside became electric. And it is also said that the biggest supporter of this Hitler said himself that if Hitler could do this with him, then why couldn't I do it with them? And that's why sometimes he changed his chambers to gas chambers, filling people inside with poisonous gases, and people died there agonizingly. It is said that he killed more than 5 lakh people in his Entorchrist chambers. Sometimes, after killing them, he brought their bodies to his room and then spent hours with them, or sometimes he even slept with them, and Ed's room was very secret. No one was allowed to enter it. No one knew what he did there, and the secret of this room was opened only when one day his 5th wife secretly went into his room, and then what she saw, maybe she couldn't forget in her whole life. She saw 2 severed heads inside a big freezer, and there were many such things in the room, some of which were missing, such as lips, liver, nose, and genitals. No one knew about this aspect, but perhaps his mentality was reflected in it that this was being done, but gradually, as the news started reaching people, his real face started coming in front of people. In fact, in an interview, he had said in front of everyone that the human meat is salter than leopard meats. His personal doctor had diagnosed Ed that he had hypomania, schizophrenia, and syphilis-like mental illnesses, but he was not ready to accept them, and with time, his madness increased. And Uganda's economy declined, and after that, to stay in power, he attracted time genius, and he lost, and after losing, he also died in Saudi Arabia, and finally, on August 16, 2003, due to organ failure, his death was also in Saudi Arabia. These were the friends. This was the story of Uganda's cruelest leader, India. Now I would like to ask you, was Amin a good person for some people, an angel, and for some people, was he definitely a dictator? What do you think? If you have read about it in history, then what do you think, which side would you like to support more? According to you, was he an angel for Ugandans or then a cruel and human dictator? Write your answer in the comment section below. And if you learned anything new from this video, do hit the like button, subscribe to the Gate channel, and also press the bell and vision so that you do not miss any updates of any such videos in the future.